am a firm believer that you can have it all. You can. Now, everything's not going to be killing it all the time, right? You're not going to be 100% in every area of your life. We all got balls we've got to juggle. Some of them you have to let them drop and they just bounce and roll off. But there's certain things that, like, you can have it. You can have a successful career. You can be a businesswoman. You can be a mother. You can still go to your kids' soccer games. You can have a good marriage. You can have good friends. You can.
Welcome to another episode of the Profitable Property Management Podcast. I'm your host, Jordan Muela. Today I'm talking to Maranda Hunnicutt from Foothills Property Management. Miranda, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
So you and I were on a panel earlier. I was hosting, got to have some good back and forth, got to hear a little bit about your career and background, but boy, there sure is a whole lot that I don't know. But let's talk about where you're at today. Can you just give us a brief take on where the business sits currently?
Yeah. So we are in Anderson, South Carolina, which is a not super small town, but definitely not a metropolis. And we've got just over 700 doors, and there's a team of 12.
And these doors are primarily single family?
70-80% single family, and then we have some smaller multifamily that we do as well.
Where did those doors come from over the years? Overall, where'd you get the business?
Just hustling, just chasing it.
One at a time.
Yeah, one at a time.
Okay. So chasing the business, what does that look like for you?
Relationships and connections, meeting people, networking, making sure my clients are happy enough to refer their friends, making sure I'm in the right places at the right times is important.
How do you get taken seriously in your community when you're new?
That is so funny. So I think it's okay to not be. Like I was 27. And I really think like my first couple of clients were like, well, let's just try her. She's sweet, and they didn't have a high expectation. So when I did a good job, because the bar was so low, they were like, oh my gosh, she's sweet and she can do this. How wonderful. And then, they start telling their friends and conversations happen and more people come. And once you get rolling, it's a lot easier. But the first 3 years, I did not make any money. I sold my house. I moved in my mother's basement. But this was a decision, and I was committed. And then now I'm so glad that I was like, I'm seeing this through.
What was that? Where did that commitment come from for you?
I feel like this was my plan A. And if you have a plan B, you've already given up. So if you have a plan B, go chase your plan B because you don't love plan A enough. So
you were clear. This was the thing you wanted to do. What was it proxy for? Like if it wasn't just about property management, what was like the broader meaning? Was it the fact that it was your own business, that it was something tied in that community?
It was a multitude of things. So it was having my own business. I was a single mom at the time. I needed flexibility. And I had started in real estate. And so, people want to look at houses in the evenings and the weekends. Well, that's prime babysitting time. So that was kind of difficult to do. I had already purchased on some properties myself. And that's how I kind of started with about 30 houses from myself and my clients that I sold the properties to. And I just really wanted something that would allow me to have a normal schedule so that I didn't have to miss dance class and I didn't have to work all weekend and we didn't have to not go to birthday parties or someone else had to take her. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to be present for her. So I created myself a job and it turned into a career, like more of a business. I still sold real estate because I had to supplement the income because it's so hard. So I did both for a long time because you got to pay the bills. And then when it started becoming like a full, this takes my full, what I'm allowed to work week. And that's when I was like, okay, now I need to start working on myself and really developing, now that I can pay my bills.
Mm-hmm.
Let's build.
You've met the survival bar.
Right.
Mm. So you've been building for a number of years now, and undoubtedly there's going to be some ups and downs along the way. What are some specific and distinct highs and lows for you?
Highs are when people refer like their family and friends, when my clients do like this, they'll do like the sweetest stuff. We all have clients that we're just close to. Mm-hmm. And I remember after I had my son, I came back to work and one of my clients had sent me a beautiful flower bouquet. Mm. And it was just like, this is why I love this, because they care about me. Mm-hmm. So that's a definite high. And the lows, they just come. But I feel like you have to take that as like you take your punch, and you learn and you grow and you rock on. And you have to be able, that is essential, mm-hmm. that you can recognize where you messed up, fix it or work on fixing it or getting where you need to be to fix it, and then just move forward. Because we're not perfect. We're going to make mistakes every day. I make mistakes every day. Mm. So you got to roll with it. The reviews hurt.
Oh, undoubtedly.
I had a client, I had a employee that we had a separation with, and got a phone call, and my client, who's been with me for over 10 years, was ready to walk out the door. And this was someone that I have a friendship with, and I'm thinking, why haven't you called me? Why'd we get here? Mm-hmm. Able to salvage that. But anytime I feel like we're not delivering on my vision of of the level of service that we should have, mm-hmm. it's always a gut punch. And I've the last 6 months after this employee has left has been a constant every single day punch in the gut. It really has.
Really?
It has. It's been a little rough spell. But I'm seeing, the tides are turning, and we're getting back where we need to be.
And the rough spell related to them leaving, has that had to do with things that just coincidentally happened in the same time frame, or like the shockwaves as a result of that person leaving?
I was unaware of a lot of things that weren't happening. Mm-hmm. And it's like no one tells you, and then you do you figure it out, you finally figure it out, and you do something about it. And then they're like, oh, thank God you did something.
So then you get more of it.
So it's like, when is this going to stop? So yeah, that was rough go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that happens. This is a business of people. Mm-hmm. For good, for bad, it's all about the people. What do you do to develop and invest in your team?
That's my favorite thing. That's my high, actually, is working with people that I want to work with in a culture that I want to work in. And so I know them all because we work so closely together, and a lot of them have been with me for one over a decade, and the other one's coming up on it. And just knowing what makes them tick, like what makes them happy, and then pouring into them and trusting them to do stuff and saying, hey, let's come to this conference with me. Like, invest in their development, regardless of, I feel like some people don't do that because they're scared that they're going to leave them and whatever, but you can't keep somebody down because you're scared of what may happen. Mm-hmm. So investing in them, developing them, and then surprising them, delighting them by knowing what matters to them, because it's different for every person, and it's different for every person during every stage of life. Mm-hmm. So my right hand right now has 2 small children. Well, I know that. I have been there, done that. So, to her, me sending someone over to clean her house before her family's coming in from out of town means more than a bonus would, because it's like I didn't even have time to schedule that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm.
So
Beautiful. Love that.
just little stuff like that,
What about the flip side? What about holding your people accountable? What about defining what you will and will not tolerate within the business?
that's difficult to do, because you want to support and encourage. You want to love somebody through it. You want everyone to be trainable. And I have not mastered hire slow, fire fast. I got a lot of work to do on me with that. But what we've been doing is putting more accountability procedures in place, more meetings. We weren't doing quarterly meetings. We were only doing annual meetings, and that was not great. And trying to find the patterns faster so that you can draw attention to it and handle it in the moment. And then if we're having the same conversations three times, right? Because you have to be told initially, and then you may need some corrections or whatever. But if this is your job and it's your job and you're not doing it, one time's a mess up, everybody messes up. The second time's okay. Do we need training? Do we need, a plan of correction? And then the third time's like, you're just sorry. This isn't working out.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I need to do some research on that, because I don't know the best way to handle it. If somebody knows, call me and let me know, because I need to know.
Me too. Yeah, as leadership, it's definitely the least obvious part of business that has the greatest amount of impact.
It's the hardest part.
How to handle those conversations. I think it starts with getting clear on what you will and will not tolerate.
Mm-hmm.
And step one. And beyond that, I think the bleeding edge is really around how do you care for and about people while still having a very clear, objective conversation about performance. That's the fine art. It's easy to want to remove the humanity from it when you have to do something bad or negative, but I believe you can do both. It's a lot of effort and work there, but I'm personally stimulated by that challenge of meaning both. I appreciate you sharing that, like, you don't have the answers there. That's the truth for us in all areas of business.
That's the managing people, holding them accountable while supporting them is seriously my biggest struggle right now. It is, and I've always struggled with it. So just trying to figure that out. I'm trying to learn and grow and be a better leader so that I can do that. And they do feel supported, and I don't lose a good one because I handled it wrong. Because that's the flip side of it too. Like, it's fine when it's somebody that's messing up and they need to go and they're out the door. That's one issue. But how do you have someone who really wants to do a great job and they keep messing up? Because once you start kicking someone when they're down, you're done. Like, they're never going to get up. They're going to quit.
Nice but incompetent. That's what you're describing.
Right.
Yes. Nice but incompetent, as well as the brilliant jerk. Those are two dangerous species in the kingdom, and the handling looks different, but in both cases, you got to be clear on what you're going to tolerate. Once you start tolerating things, you start resenting things, including people. And that's the thing that's the least fair, is to keep somebody around bitching, complaining about them, resenting them. That's the least fair thing of anything that could happen.
I think the worst thing for me, because we are such a close team, one bad apple will ruin the bunch. It will. And so your best people will see you tolerating and not handling, and then they're like, well, why am I busting my butt when they're just like skating out? Yeah.
It's demoralizing.
So that's a big issue. That's the fire quick that I need to work on. That was my...
Fire quick. Let's see if we can be playful with that. Fire quick. I think what people are trying to say there is get clear on what you will not tolerate it, and don't tolerate things for a long period of time. That's what people are trying to say, is don't tolerate things. I think in the midst of the non-toleration, there's a whole host of other steps, the stuff that you
absolutely, yeah.
multiple trainings. What could we do? Acknowledging we have exerted a ton of effort and resources to select and bring somebody on the team. We're really invested here. The best possible outcome is that somebody trips, falls, stumbles, help get them back up and get back on track. That's really the optimal. The worst case scenario, what is excruciating to me, the rare times where I have somebody in the organization for just like 6 months, boy, that is worth multiple annual salaries. I'd say a 3x of an annual salary. That's kind of what I mentally calibrate to for that kind of a situation. But it happens. That's part of the journey of business, figuring out how to manage and prevent those things. I want to hear more about the specific type of client that you serve and how you position your business in the market with a lot of people there, I assume plenty of other operators. How do you differentiate and position what you do?
Our pitch is that we protect your house. We protect your asset. So it's not just about, it's looking at the big picture, looking at the entire picture. So yes, you want a great tenant. Yes, you want high rents, but let me show you what vacancy costing looks like. Let me show you what a turnover costing looks like. And if you max them out every single time they're up for a renewal, they're going to move. And let me tell you how much that's going to cost you. So really looking at it as like the big picture as an investment, not as a short term, I'm going to rent my house for 1 year and whatever. Like the people that I work with are in it for the long haul. They've purchased these properties for retirement. They've purchased these properties to fund their kids' college funds. They have a reason why they're doing this, and they have an outcome that they want. And for me, I've got to figure out what that is, and then what's the best strategy for us to achieve that. If you're going through something short term, yeah, maybe you do want to max your rents for a little bit, and then be a little less aggressive and have someone stable as you near retirement or whatever. So I think it's looking at what works for them, and then making sure that we meet that and that we can deliver on that. I personally, on my properties, I'm like slow and steady wins the race, man. I want to be $50, $100 cheaper than the house next door because I never want my tenant to move. I want to maintain it. I want to look at it every year. I want to do walkthroughs. I want to have a home inspector come in and tell me what's wrong, and keep the asset up. But I do not want to deal with turnovers if I don't have to, because you will naturally anyway. But to me, I find it, I don't like when we have a property and it's an annual, every year the tenant moves every year.
You have some properties like that?
Yes.
Yeah.
And the owners are just constantly pushing. I'm like, we had a tenant that wanted to stay, that was paying, great tenant, took care of the property. And you
priced them out.
And now you have someone that isn't as good of a housekeeper, that doesn't do their, yard maintenance as they should. And they're only going to be there because we're not going to renew them because they're not keeping up.
Mm-hmm.
And you spent X amount on paint. You spent X amount on it sitting because you were priced high.
Mm-hmm.
And like, can you please see this?
Mm-hmm.
And if they can, great. They can see it and we can get on the same page. And if they can't, then we're not the right fit.
Part ways.
Because you're not going to be successful with that because you're not aligned.
Mm-hmm.
So I think alignment is key.
People coming to you as the trusted advisor, looking for your counsel, for your taste. That's how I think about it in business in general. I want to be hired for my taste, not just for the functional mechanics, but people are just saying, you have good taste. I don't. You're the expert. I'm not. What do you think?
Right. You absolutely want clients who value your opinion. Like if you think that you know how to manage the properties, the one property that you've just bought,
as well as the management
as well as someone who's managed thousands of homes over, you know, 12, then we're not on the same, like,
if I think we're peers, the only difference is you're going to admin the property, but you know, we're peers on knowledge base.
Right.
That's not a good.
It's just not a good fit.
Right.
And when you start out, you take anything. I mean, I did. And then you have to go through and like cull the herd.
Mm-hmm.
And every year we do. Every year we review our owners. We review, are they still a good fit for us? Because the business changes and evolves just like people do. And so maybe they were a great fit for the company 7 years ago, but now they're not. And that's okay. It's okay to outgrow your client or whatever.
Sure.
That's
so okay to outgrow relationships in general. You're going to shed some
Absolutely.
relationships over time. That's a healthy thing as you're more clear on who you are and who you want to be around, who you want to interact with.
And what's valuable. And if you have clients or employees or really anyone in your life that does not like have the same base value that you do, even though you can be completely opposite personality-wise, it's just not no one's ever gonna be happy because you don't care about the same things.
Yeah, getting around people that have common priorities and objectives is a huge accelerator towards whatever those objectives are. It really doesn't matter what they are, you know, whether it's golfing or business or reading. I want to hear a little bit about what the guts of the business look like, day-to-day operations. How are you structured, for example?
So we are like a hybrid. So we have 2 pods with a PM. They each have a maintenance coordinator and a resident service coordinator. We have a leasing coordinator. We have someone that does billing, accounting, that kind of function. And we have an office manager that just kind of, she's awesome. She just like knows everything that's going on. And we have a receptionist because we were having, one of the issues that we've been having was I can't get anyone on the phone. So we were using a call center and it did not go how I had planned.
Sure. I'm sure when you hired the call center, you assumed that you would be more available on the phone.
That was the goal.
Right.
And it didn't go that way. And that's okay. That kind of stuff I can pull out of real quick. I was like, hey, no, this is not working. And so we hired someone direct, and she's awesome too. Everybody is really, but she's got a fun personality. She's great for it.
And is she local?
No, she's in the Philippines.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Great.
And that works well. But she answers the phones, and then I have a VP that like does our operations stuff. Because I'm not a good communicator. I talk a lot, but I don't communicate well. And she feels we're complete opposite personalities. And I think that's super important to have someone who is very different than you because they see things differently. I'm the one, I'm like, we're going to go climb the mountain. And she's like, well, wait a second. Before you go, you need a tent. Do we have, do we have food? Has anybody gotten water? Are you in your heels? Can you change? I think maybe that would be a good idea. So I think having that, and then I try to make the counterparts, because everybody has a counterpart. And I try to make them have opposite personalities. That's important to me, to be strategic in that. So if I have a very outgoing PM, the RSC is a little more introverted. And that way they can balance each other. I feel like that's a building block of a good team.
Interesting. Temperamental pairing. Yeah, that makes sense. So back to the theme of getting into some of the other guts of the business, talking about some of the tech stack that you use to manage the business.
So we use AppFolio. We use Lead Simple. We use Tenant Turner.
Does that stack feel stable to you right now?
It does. The integrations have been game changer.
Yeah?
That was a game changer. And of course, everything can improve and get better, and there's issues and whatever. But to be able to grow, because you don't have to spend. I used to always tell everyone that came on board, it's going to take you a year for you to feel like you have any idea what's going on around here.
Wow.
Because there's
A year.
every property, you need to know the property, right? Where's the breaker box at? Because somebody's going to call you and they're not going to have power. Do you know where it is? You know, is it in the notes? Have you read it? Have you been to the property? You need to know the owner. You need to know the tenants. You need to know all the vendors that we use, all the contractors that we use, and get familiar with all the software where you feel confident, because there's a lot on that. That's something that's hard to. You can watch all the videos you want to, but until you get in there and try to run something, it doesn't have any context, so you don't know. So using the tech now, that has shortened the year. I would say maybe we're down to like 6 months. You should feel like, okay, I don't think I have to ask 50,000 questions a day, which is totally fine.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like I know how to do this now. So I'm seeing major improvements there, which is great.
Love that. That's obviously going to be a part of the employee experience, the tech stack that you're using. It's like probably something that doesn't get verbalized very often, but like it's quality of life, right?
Absolutely. And that's one of the reasons when we were talking about figuring out if an employee's a good fit, or like knowing, holding them accountable and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
First question, do you have the tools that you need? What do you need? How are we doing this? And because if they don't have the tools they need, it's not their fault they're doing a bad job. It's your fault because you didn't give them what they needed. So having tools there for them to use, them knowing how to use the tools, it being easy and seamless and all of that, that's that's your job as a leader, to make sure that they have everything that they need. That's your job.
What pieces of the work stream of your business are flowing through Lead Simple, and what pieces of the work stream are flowing through Appfolio?
So we do the process is in Lead Simple, obviously, like the task and whatever. And then Appfolio is used like a database, but I send, like, the leases are sent out of Appfolio. Renewal offers, lease violations, things like that. Basically anything that I may need to take to court is in Appfolio, because it's easy to find. And the way that it's structured is very nice. And then the employee side of the work that gets done, the volume, there's so much volume of tasks that are done, that lives inside of Lead Simple. So I'm trying not to have too many softwares, because that's just, shiny new object, lots of stuff. We've tried lots of stuff. Yeah. It's so tempting. Everything's going to solve all my problems, but it's not, because I'm the problem. So, like, we got to work on that first, which I've been doing.
Right.
So, trying to just, let's dial down. Let's use what we have. Are we paying for something that's available to us inside of Appfolio? Because we were, and we don't need to. Because then we have a third platform to go on.
I hear you want to have focus on doing more stuff with fewer tools. That absolutely makes a ton of sense to me. What makes it worth investing in all that tech to get the process stuff set up in the first place? Obviously, not everybody does that. You do. How new is that, or old is that?
So we've been on Lead Simple this summer, be a year.
Got it.
So we had 2 processes that we worked with someone to build out, and we were running those. And that was it.
That was it.
And then when the stack with Appfolio came, that really opened. That was just like, thank you, or prayers answered.
Well, what were the two processes that you started with, that you're doing first?
We were doing lease renewals and move-ins.
Okay. You got those dialed first.
Because they were easiest. They were the ones that we internally had the best processes for. And that's why we chose that.
Sure.
And then we stalled. And then the stack was released, and I was like, this is gonna, and when we talk about it as a team, and I'm like, I really need y'all to understand what I'm trying to do here. Like, we're shaving seconds to make minutes to make hours. That's what we're doing. You're still going to have to call people and talk to them and all that, but now you're going to have time to. That's the goal here.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then it just kind of stalled. And then I realized, you got to get it done, man. So I started going into the office every Saturday morning from 8 to 12 by myself, because I can't get anything done during the week. It's very difficult. And there's a lot of distractions and, all this stuff. So started going in 8 to 12. I started building out processes, did the delinquency process, finished that up right when Autopilot was released. Mm-hmm. So this was like last month. Mm-hmm. And put that on, set it up, turned it on, and I called the team and I was like, hey, we had a meeting. I'm like, I turned this on. This is what's supposed to happen. I don't know what's going to happen. We're all going to be surprised. It's going to be great. But this is what's supposed to happen. And let me know if it doesn't. And let's figure it out. So, of course, there were things that didn't go. There's always like stuff you can't plan for. Oh, I put too many conditions in the conditional logic and it got something a little screwy. But I think knowing that, like, hey, this is a work in progress, mm-hmm. Is helpful for everyone. And I think it's really helpful that I built it. Miranda's coming in on Saturdays and building this process. And then everybody has 5,000 tasks. What's going on? I messed this up. And it's totally okay. This is part of the learning curve in the process. So yeah, I'm going to mess it up. So since then, they're more willing to go in and build and change and all of that, because it's it's okay mm-hmm. if it's going to mess up. Just don't send anything to clients going out automatic when you're first doing it, because you don't want that.
Right.
But yeah, so that's been fun. That was fun. I like that.
So you're the sort of person that's going to get 10 reps in trying something while somebody else is perfecting and practicing and getting ready for that one rep. That's what I'm hearing here. Is like you chose to learn in motion.
I have to, because that's the only failing in quotes. That's the only way you learn. That's the only way you learn, is to do it and try, and you fall down and it stings a little or it hurts, but you can't be scared to bleed, right? Like, you've got to do it. Mm-hmm. So you learn a little bit, you get back up, you try again. This time, maybe don't hurt everywhere. Maybe it's just like a little scratch, mm-hmm. Get a Band-Aid, rock on, let's go again. And you got to get back up. You are going to get punched as a business owner. And you got to take your licks, put your big girl underwear on, and let's go. Mm-hmm. Let's do it again. And then eventually you'll get it right. Hopefully. I don't know. That's the goal. That's what I'm going for.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting game, isn't it, though? Getting knocked down, getting back up. When you're talking about grit, is what you're talking about, tenacity. So where does that come from for you?
I don't know. My mom is like that. And we just have love of learning new things, love of trying new things, love of adventure. It's just like our family culture is like that. So we were always, it's okay if you can fail, that's fine, but you can't not try. You have to try. Fail, that's fine. I don't care. I played softball. My mother told me I sucked so bad. This is an actual true story. Right field, I'm doing cartwheels, picking clovers, living my best life. Could not get on base all season. This was in the early 90s. She said, I'll give you $50 if you make it to first base. And I was like, oh, I'm doing this, I got walked. And it was so awesome. And I was like, deal's a deal. Deal's a deal. And then everybody else was good. I was the worst one on the team.
Yeah.
everybody else was great. So they got me home. I'm like, what do I get for like, I scored a run.
Yeah.
Only time I got on base entire season. And my mom was like, I don't think softball's for you, honey. I'm like, I don't think it is either.
It was enough, though. It was enough to motivate the
But it was like,
moms.
keep trying. Like, keep going. You're going up there and you're like, I'm going to strike out.
Right.
So motivate yourself.
Yeah.
What's it going to take to get you to want it?
Yes.
And I got lucky, which is great with that walk. Because sometimes you get lucky and that's awesome.
Sure.
But it's a blessing or a lesson. That's my grandmother always said that. Whatever happens in life, it's a blessing or a lesson. So, and sometimes it's both.
Win or learn. That's another way to put it.
Yeah.
I either win or I learn.
And you win either way. And I think it's important to have that outlook. I think people are really just, I think there's such a negative thing around failure. And it's like, why? You're not failing, you're learning, man.
Certainly your outlook is determinative. Whatever you make up, you get to be right about. If you make up the story that you're talking about, you get to be right about that. You make up a story that life is just happening to you and what can you do? This is just the way it is. Why try harder? Nothing's going to change. You get to be right about that too.
I have zero patience.
I can tell. It's coming through. You're lacking patience
that's not
for
me.
it.
Like I don't want anyone around me like that.
Yeah.
I don't want anybody on my team like that.
Yeah.
Like if you're not living, you're just dying slow. So what are we doing here? Like if it's that bad, change. Just change. Just do something. Pick something. Change something. Because I will change something in a heartbeat.
Everything in my life, I'm either creating or tolerating. If I can bring that kind of ownership to the situation, then it's like, well, if I don't like it, I could stop doing it, If it ain't working, I can go elsewhere.
I'm going to steal that.
Please do. Please, yeah. Put that somewhere good out in the universe. I do want to hear more about the vibe on your team. You mentioned that spirit that you have is something you're looking to push into the team. In terms of like the day-to-day culture, how many people are in person?
7, including myself.
And that's in office or just
in office?
In office day-to-day. And in an average given week, are the majority of those people are working in the office during the week?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So what's the vibe like day-to-day in the office?
We're so close. We're so supportive of each other. We have some male employees, but everyone in the office is female. And we know how to support each other because we have the same, we've gone through these experiences. So like earlier when I was talking about my VP and her 2 small kids, I know how to support her because I've been there, right? And so I think it's very important to also have a different age range. I got to a point where I was the oldest person in the office. And I was like, I think I need someone that has like a different perspective. I don't want to hire anyone that's younger than me. We need someone this is their requirement. And looking for finding the right person. And that actually worked out. It doesn't always, sometimes the best candidate's not what you were thinking you needed. But the office is like, it's where you can go and be you. Right. So I wear a lot of hats, but at work, I'm Miranda. I'm not mommy. I'm not a wife. I'm not a daughter. I'm Miranda, and I can live in that, and I can still have that identity, and so can everybody else in the office. And that's something that we discuss, because a lot of people, everyone except for 2 people, we all have kids, we're all whatever. So it's like I come to work because it's my happy place. Like that is said a lot. And it's not that we don't have tenants calling and screaming at us. Of course we do. Or we don't have owners that are like, this costs too much money. Of course we do. Of course there are negative things that happen. But the beauty is that we are each other's tribe. Like we're there, we're ride or die. We will go together. And we got your back, and you're having a bad day, that's fine, I got you. Or, you're having a win, let's celebrate. And I love that. That's the kind of environment I want to live in. And that's what I want them to have as well. And it's funny because if you don't fit in that, you kind of show yourself out. It kind of flushes out the not being a team player, because we're a team and no one's more important. That's the other thing. I said, we're not a hierarchy. We're a wheel, right? And everybody is like a piece of their pie in this wheel. And if one piece isn't there, the wheel stops. It doesn't matter how beautifully round the rest of the pieces are. You get a flat tire, you're done. So what you do affects me. What I do affects you. And I'm no more important than you are, and you're not more important than me. And we're just all here trying to win together, man. We're same team. So that's the vibe in the office. And that means so much to me personally.
I can tell.
Yeah.
And I think that's really all that matters, is that it's really meaningful to you. Everything you just said could be written down, and as a sterile proposition, it may have some value, but the meaning for you, the importance, like the emotive thing that I can feel, I mean, that's what turns it into a bumper sticker or a truism versus something that can be really transformative. I love that you have that, and that you've given yourself permission to make work that. Some people don't give themselves permission to believe that that's okay.
I am a firm believer that you can have it all. You can. Now, everything's not going to be killing it all the time, right? You're not going to be 100% in every area of your life. We all got balls we've got to juggle. Some of them you have to let them drop and they just bounce and roll off. But there's certain things that, like, you can have it. You can have a successful career. You can be a businesswoman. You can be a mother. You can still go to your kids' soccer games. You can have a good marriage. You can have good friends. You can. They all have to wax and wane and give. Sometimes you got to throw one of them up in the air. Like, obviously, I'm traveling this week. I'm not home. So am I killing it in motherhood this week? No, I'm not. But I'm working on my business. It's okay. And then I'll go back and I'll spend more time with them and kind of not work. So I probably won't work Saturday when I get home this week, because I'm going to spend time with them. So you just have to, that flow. And I think that's very difficult for women. And it's something that's very important to me to, like, I want to be moderately successful in all areas of life and have a very well-rounded life, instead of being like
bent in one direction, killing it in one area, and the rest of your life is just a dustbin.
Right. That's a nightmare to me. That's not quality of life to me.
Yeah, I hear you. I was talking to somebody last night that was struggling with that, a gal who was articulating that there was something business-wise she really wanted to do, but she felt like she was so deeply conflicted about what it would mean for the other areas of her life. Like, is choosing this saying no to being a good mom? And I thought to myself, I can, but I mostly can't relate to that. I haven't, like, personally had a firsthand situation where I was looking at starting a new business and I was like, well, I could either start that business or I could be a good dad. I see that there is something uniquely complicated there for women, mothers, having to deal with that situation. It felt really heavy, the conversation I was having in the moment.
It is. The weight of motherhood is load bearing, like, it's a big one. But I also think, like, it's important to realize how working and being successful in business, committing to your business, investing in yourself, you need to realize how that has a positive effect. So I listen to audiobooks in the car. My kids were in the car. They're talking. And my daughter, who is 5, says to my son, who is 8, shh, Mommy's learning how to be a better boss. Like, she gets it. She's 5. And you know what I got from that? Number 1, she's my mini-me, bossy, like, hush. We're working now.
I got one of those too.
And then number 2, I'm learning.
Right.
I'm working on myself. I'm trying to grow. And Mommy's a boss, man. Like, I heard that in there. I heard that. So, like, that, there's value in that.
Yeah.
But she's 5. She's never going to remember that.
Yeah.
But when she's 25, she'll just have this drive and she won't know where it came from.
Yeah.
And it came from stuff like that every little day, all these little, it's never the straw. It's the accumulation, right? Well, that's the same way with positive experiences too. It's never the one big grand gesture. It's all the little teeny tiny things that like, oh, you care.
I'm thinking about what you said there in the motherhood comment. I'm thinking about the inverse of that for men. I don't know if it's an inverse or not, but for men, I see the draw towards a pursuit of success that does come at a very obvious loss of family. And it's interesting to me how it's normalized. It's never like verbalized as like, this is commendable, but it's definitely normalized. Like, you want to be a billionaire? You're going to have to break some shit, including maybe a starter family,
Yeah.
You might need to have a starter family if you're going to go down that path. But the subtext is kind of like, but in the end, it'll be worth it because you have an empire. And I'm thinking to myself,
but is it?
No, not for me. Not for me. That wouldn't pencil. Knowing that that's what was happening, that wouldn't pencil. But there's temptation and there's draw. And for a lot of people, for me, business in many ways is an expression of like some level of compulsiveness for me, where there is like something kind of obsessive. And this is an appropriate way to channel it, instead of other destructive habits. So I embrace that side of it, but I also realize that like my calling is to be sufficiently connected with the people in the business that I'm called out of the compulsiveness, which would transactionalize everything and reduce it down to money ultimately. Like if I can be connected enough with the people and get enough meaning in the relationships, it pulls me out of that and it balances me towards something that does allow me to have both a great business outcome, a stellar business outcome, and deep, meaningful connection along the way. That's what I'm aiming for.
Yeah. The balance. Life is a balance.
I can have
both. Have both.
You can have it all, folks. You heard it here first.
You can. Now, you have to be disciplined in that. So COVID, I didn't work at home. I can't work at home. Never mind all the millions. I mean, 3 kids, 2 dogs. I can't work at home. I can't.
It's not productive for you.
No, not at all. It's important for me to change the hat though. And like, I recognize that in myself. So driving to the office, changing that hat, getting there, I'm like, okay, I'm in work mode. Driving home, I'm decompressing, I'm relaxed. I'm trying to get myself in mommy mode. And it's not a flip of a switch. It is a legit process. And I'm not successful at it every day, but I try again. Today I sucked, man. I was answering emails, I was whatever, but I think building out. So we have dinner together at 6:30 sharp every night. There are no phones. We do sweet and sour around the table. Everybody. We fight over who goes first and who's last, and we spin a wheel to settle things.
Sweet and sour, like rose and thorn, like best and worst thing today. Right on.
Everybody.
Right on.
And that makes us sit there for at least half an hour. My oldest is 15. She's a teenager. There are times, that's the only time she like legit will talk to me. Not that she loves me, but they get in moods, whatever. But it's every day. It's clockwork. It doesn't matter who's at our house. It doesn't matter if we're at a restaurant. We will sit down. We will say the blessing. Everybody's looking at us. I don't care. And we go around and we do our sweet and sour. And that's what. And now all of our friends do it.
Yeah.
With their families. It's just like
6 p.m. every day. You got the Von Trapp operation going on.
I run a tight ship.
Okay.
I do.
Clearly, it's coming through. Okay.
I do. You have to though.
Yeah. I mean, it's life-giving to have order. I know that much. It's life-giving to know what's coming and to have beginnings and endings and routines and things that you can count on. Yeah, that definitely does a lot for family life, for sure.
Well, if it's not on schedule, it doesn't get done. Like my Lead Simple rollout was not on the schedule and it didn't get done. So I had to put it on the schedule.
And then it got done.
The available spot was Saturday morning. That's what it took.
Yeah.
And then it got done.
Yes.
So when like, I can't talk to you because I've got to sit down and eat dinner with my family and this is what we do. And there are no exceptions. Like, don't come at me with, I got to take a call. No, you don't.
Mm. Well, I'm going to take that as some food for thought for myself. Yeah, there's value there. It's a struggle, but it's worth fighting for sure. I think that the work that I'm doing as an entrepreneur impacts my family in such a big and profound way, and I don't mean financially. I mean in terms of like the energy that I'm bringing to the day to day, and the highs and the lows that I'm carrying or withholding. How do you deal with that part of it, of not, when something happens at work that was just an objective failure, and you're in your feelings about it? How do you manage bringing that energy back home?
They get a muted version.
So they still see some of it still comes through.
I can't be like, I can hide being upset most of the time. I can hide like if like my feelings are hurt. I can hide that pretty well. I cannot hide being angry.
Agitated.
Oh, they know the look. They're like, Mom's pissed. So they get a very muted version. But I think it's so important to share with them, I had a bad day. I sucked today. I messed up, and someone caught it before I did. Because my whole thing is like, you make mistakes. You make sure you catch it. You try to catch it. If you can catch it first, then you can get ahead of it, and then you're in control of the dialogue. But with somebody else, if it gets to the point where somebody else catches it, then we're all screwed. So, but I want my kids to know, like, I mess up. This is my son specifically. He's a perfectionist, and I got to get him out of that, because that's an unhappy life. No one's going to be perfect. I don't want you scared to try because you're scared you're going to fail. You're going to fail, do it, and then fail again, and then do it again, and let's go, and let's go. And I push him, and he lets me push him. No one else can push him like that. But I think a lot of that is because I share my failures with my children. That's important, that they know I'm not perfect, and I'm flawed, and I'm working on myself. I think that's...
Sure. What you just made me think of is, when I got started in business, I'm pretty sure this is true. I could be making up this in my head, but what I remember my mentor telling me was that you need to start the first business. It's going to fail, but you need to start it so you can get on to the second one. And that was a really weird thought of, like, statistically, that almost certainly has to be true.
Did it?
Yes, it did not work out. It's still around, but it did not work out anywhere close to my expectations. But it just reframed things, because it's not like it wasn't hard afterwards, but somehow it just reset. It was like, yeah, this is probably going to fail, but so I need to go. So, like, let's go.
Yeah.
Let's be all in with it and less attached to it, right? Less attached to it, because it was like right at the outset, it's like, oh, and if it fails, all I have to do is keep going and do the second one.
Right. Because you failing doesn't make you a failure.
Exactly.
Right.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, I still struggled with that when I was in it, but that's what it was, is it made me less attached to it. And attachment is where a lot of suffering comes from.
Right.
Where if you just weren't on about that specific thing happening, things would be okay. It's really...
The first time you fall off the bike hurts the most. And then, like, you're, trying to do tricks and you're falling off left and right, and it's like you don't even flinch.
Right. You ever watch skateboarders?
Yes.
It's nuts. Absolutely nuts.
Yes.
Rare breed.
I mean, that is one you want to talk about. Don't be scared to bleed.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a literal. I was talking like not literal.
Metaphorical.
Metaphor. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. I want to wrap it here. If you had one piece of advice or feedback for somebody that's new in this business, that wants to be all in, play the long game, what's the one thing that you would point them to right out of the gate?
I mean, the obvious stuff is like write your processes and blah, blah, blah. But I think the most important is when you do hire someone, don't be an echo chamber. Don't be like, I'm your boss, you can't tell me I'm always right. Be open for feedback. Ask for feedback. and get it from everyone that you can, and learn, just constantly just learn and read and listen to podcasts, but make a list, keep a list on your phone. This is what's going on, because you'll forget it and you'll go back. I have stacks of notebooks. And when I have like a dull moment, I'm like, what's in my book? Let's look, let's see, and go back to it, because you can't do everything all at once. And maybe there's something that you need to do at this level. You're not there yet. That's okay. Do what you can with what you have, and then know that it's like constant improvement, and welcome the criticism, welcome the failure, get up and try again, because it won't hurt as much the next time. I think that's the biggest thing. And don't be scared to try it. Like, it's not going to be perfect. No, it's going to suck. It's going to be awful. You're going to do 20 times and it's still going to suck, but it's going to suck differently. And that's important.
That's some great, honest, heartfelt advice. I appreciate you coming on. We talked about the intention for the show, and I think this hit it. Thank you for everything that you're doing and sharing your story with other people.
Thank you so much.
Until next time.
Jordan here, asking you, what do you got? What is a question you want to ask me? Can you stump me? Can you throw me something hard, perplexing, vexing, something you feel tied up in knots with? Throw it at me. I'll do my best to try and answer that question, to dissect it, to parse out the nuance, and maybe help you get a bit more clarity. I'm looking for questions as the basis for creating content, and you're looking for answers as the basis for clarity. And wouldn't it be perfect if those two things matched up? Drop a comment, send me an email, jordan@leadsimple.com. Let's stay in the conversation. Peace.